Now, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to everyone who's present today. I can assure you we're all most welcome to this April breakfast meeting of the European Business Network, EBN. My name is Peter McIver and I'm the Ambassador of Ireland here in Vilnius. I'm taking the floor this morning because Ireland is the chair of the EBN for the 4-month period from March to June 2001. Our subject this morning, as you know, is gender equality in the workplace, which is an extremely important topic for all of us. The format this morning will be presentations by two speakers, Sheelagh Daly, Entrepreneurship Manager at Enterprise Ireland in Dublin, and Žydrūnė Vitaitė, the co-founder of the Women Go Tech initiative in Lithuania. After the presentations, there will be a panel discussion on relevant topics such as salary gaps and also general challenges, best practices, insights and pitfalls where gender issues are concerned. The discussion will be moderated by Roosalu, and the speakers will include Triin Roosalu of Tallinn University and Georgeta Dendrino, Vice President Partnership of the Professional Women's Network in Romania. But we're beginning this morning with a presentation by Sheelagh Daly, Entrepreneurship Manager at Enterprise Ireland in Dublin. Enterprise Ireland, for those who don't know, is the Government of Ireland organisation responsible for the development and growth of Irish enterprises in world markets. It works in partnership with Irish enterprises to help them start, grow, innovate, and win export sales in global markets. In this way, Enterprise Ireland supports sustainable economic growth, regional development, and secure employment. In her current role as Entrepreneurship Manager at Enterprise Ireland, Sheelagh is particularly focused on increasing participation by women in business and entrepreneurship. We are most grateful to her for participating in the webinar this morning, particularly in Lithuanian time is 2 hours ahead of Irish time, which has certainly meant a very early start for Sheelagh. We are very much looking forward to your presentation. Thanks once again, Sheelagh, for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ambassador McIver, and thank you very much indeed to the European Business Network for the invitation to join you this morning. I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to join you in Lithuania and well, virtually in Lithuania. So today what I'm going to do is give you a bit of background on and an overview of the Enterprise Ireland Women in Business strategy. I'm just going to try and share my screen and hopefully it'll work. We tested it earlier, it did work. Now it's, no, that.
It's fine, yeah.
Are you seeing the main slide, Peter, just?
Yes.
Or are you seeing all the, because I'm seeing something quite strange here, but anyway, okay, so you can see that, can you?
Yes.
Right, so, okay, so, yeah, sorry, it just looks very strange on my screen, but I'm assuming it looks okay on yours. So I'm just going to, as I said, give you some background to and an overview of the women of Enterprise Ireland's Women in Business strategy, and to share with you some of the actions that we've already taken and our priorities for 2021. The ambassador has already given you some background on who we are, who is Enterprise Ireland, and as he said, we are the national government organisation responsible for supporting Irish SMEs with export ambitions, particularly in the manufacturing and international traded services sector. We work with around 4,000 to 5,000 Irish SMEs and large companies across all sectors. We provide supports to improve competitiveness, undertake research and development, improve productivity and develop strategic leadership and management capability. In addition, we have 40 overseas offices, and we provide market support for Irish companies through those Irish exporters across the globe through those offices. The companies we support employ over 220,000 people across the country, 65% of whom of the jobs are located outside of Dublin, which is very important from the perspective of balanced regional development. In 2021, notwithstanding the dual challenges of Brexit and COVID, we expect that the companies we work with will generate close to 26 billion euros worth of exports, to spend 1.25 billion on research and development, and to contribute spending of over 28 billion to the Irish economy. A key source for economic growth, in our view, lies in the untapped potential of women. And last year we launched our 6-year Women in Business strategy. The strategy was based on research, consultation and analysis that we had carried out during 2019, and it aimed to address the continuing deficit of women starting and growing businesses in Ireland. Now, just to say that addressing this deficit is something that we had been focused on for well over a decade. As I mentioned in the introduction, Enterprise Ireland focuses on supporting companies with strong growth and export potential. In the case of startups, we're very specifically focused on providing programs and funding to what we call high potential startups, which are defined as innovative startups that will generate revenues in excess of €1 million and employ more than 10 people within 3 years of starting, and are internationally focused. So on average, and the way in which we support these is obviously with programs and finance, we invest money in these startups. So on average, we would invest in about 100 of them every year. Back in 2011, only 7% of the startups we were investing in included a female founder, so would be considered a female-founded startup. So at that time, we decided to place a specific focus on trying to address that particular issue, and we undertook a range of actions over the course of a number of years. And these actions included setting annual targets for investment in female-founded startups, putting in place networking, mentoring and development programs, including a program called Going for Growth, which is now an internationally recognized entrepreneur-led program. We also initiated female-specific funding calls through a competitive start fund, which provides very early stage seed funding of €50,000. All of those initiatives combined resulted in a threefold increase in female-founded startups, from that 7% in 2011 to 22% in 2018. So, however, notwithstanding that achievement, which was a significant achievement, the wider numbers of women starting and growing businesses in Ireland remains persistently low. When we look at the self-employed, and in particular those employing others, the ratio of men to women is still around 3 to 1. When we look at enterprise leadership in Ireland, less than 1 in 5 CEOs of SMEs and 1 in 10 CEOs of large companies are women, and only 27% of senior executive teams are women. The funding system, in addition, also demonstrates disparity in terms of gender balance. Only 6% of angel investors are women, and around 10% or less of VC investment goes to women-founded companies. There are multiple and complex causes behind these statistics, and unfortunately, one challenge, potential challenge, is that the pandemic may have the potential to exacerbate some of these challenges, including the disproportionate responsibility for childcare and elder care that tends to fall to women, as well as the impact on the industry sectors in which women tend to be operating. There is already some evidence emerging that indicates that there might be a higher negative impact on labour force participation rates of women. And recent research that was undertaken by the Irish Business and Employers Confederation suggests that 1 in 10 SMEs expect to have difficulties retaining female staff following COVID-19. So in this context, our new strategy for women in business is even more relevant and important. The direction we've taken, which takes a much broader focus than we had previously, acknowledges that we couldn't expect to continue to increase the narrow pool of female-founded high potential startups without addressing the wider environment and ecosystem. The new strategy we launched in 2020, therefore, has 4 key objectives. And underpinning each of those 4 objectives, we've set out 6 actions. So we've 24 actions in total. We are going to continue to focus on increasing the number of female-founded high potential startups. But in addition to that, we want to focus on increasing the number of women who are becoming entrepreneurs, increasing the number of women-led companies that have high growth ambitions and that look to export markets to scale on international markets. And finally, we want to increase the number of women in senior management and leadership roles in Irish companies. The 4 objectives are very closely interlinked and interdependent in our view. So we believe that in order to achieve any of these objectives, we actually do need to achieve all of these objectives. So for example, if you look at for the first time ever, we've included a focus on increasing the number of women in leadership positions in Irish companies. And there are many reasons, but 2 key reasons why it's important to include this in a strategy focusing on enterprise and entrepreneurship. Firstly, as you're probably all aware, there is significant international research that demonstrates a clear link between companies that have gender diversity in decision-making and strategic roles, that those companies perform better. They're more profitable, they're more productive, and they deliver better returns on assets. Secondly, we also know that people who have senior management experience are more likely to see an opportunity for a new enterprise. And then in addition to that, to have the capability and the confidence to do something about that opportunity and to have that all-important network that will help them to realize the opportunity, including better access to finance. We also know when we look at the founders of the high potential startups that we invest in, more than 80% of those founders have had previous experience in a senior management role in industry. So therefore, our long-term view on this is that it's critical to securing a stronger pipeline of future female entrepreneurs. So as an organization, we also know the value of setting targets, and our plan therefore has 5 key metrics for 2025, which is how we're going to measure our success. We have set ambitious targets. We intend to increase the number of women-led companies that are scaling on international markets by 100%. We are looking for a 100% increase in the participation rates of women on Enterprise Island management development programs, a 50% increase in women participants on startup programs, and a 50% increase in local enterprise office supports going to women entrepreneurs. And just to explain, the local enterprise offices are, as it were, a sister organization that provide support to micro enterprises. And then, of course, as I mentioned previously, we are continuing to focus on increasing the number of female-founded high potential startups. And our target for that is to bring it up to 30%. And I'm delighted to say that in 2020, 24% of our high potential startups are female founded. So we are well on our way to achieve that 2026 target. And now I'm having problems getting to my next slide. So let me just see. Okay. Right, there we are. So as I mentioned, underpinning each of the 4 objectives, we've set out 6 actions, 24 actions in total. And I'm not, you'll be glad to know, going to go through every single one of them, but I'm just putting up. So that's the first 2 objectives, the actions underpinning them. But just to give you an idea of what, and all of this is contained within the document, which is available on our corporate website. So some of these actions we can act upon directly ourselves. Many of them require us to collaborate with others and to take an influencing role in the policies and activities of other players in the Irish ecosystem. It is, I suppose, worth mentioning the impact of COVID on the rollout of our strategy and the actions. As we all know, in the middle of March 2020, everything changed, and we, as the national government organisation for Irish enterprise, had to rapidly develop a comprehensive suite of business response services aimed at addressing the urgent crisis that was facing all Irish companies. In terms of the impact of COVID on women entrepreneurs, some of the challenges include the danger of increasing pressures brought about by the lack of childcare facilities, which tends to impact far more on women. The particular nuances of how women approach risk and finance for their business could be exacerbated by the current financial pressures. And also the real risk that companies themselves who had started to make steps and to take steps towards addressing gender diversity could pull back from that or deprioritize it. I think, we recognize that unfortunately when you're fighting a crisis, other things, however important, can tend to slip off the business agenda. So, however, while acknowledging that the circumstances were likely to impact on the commencements of all 24, and that's the second set the second lot there, while we acknowledge that it was likely that we wouldn't be able to commence all 24 actions, we believed very strongly that it was more important than ever to continue to maintain a focus on our women in business strategy. And to that end, we reviewed and identified areas for prioritization. And that included ramping up our promotional campaigns, transforming our capabilities, building supports to online offerings, monitoring the take-up by women-led companies of COVID-19 business supports, and driving a women-specific funding call. So I'm just going to explain in a bit more detail and highlight a few of the actions that we've taken and talk about where our priorities lie for 2021. So the first item on the list is really critical. We have now internally implemented mechanisms to collect and track gender disaggregated data across all of the activities of our organization. What this means in practice is that we now know the number of companies where the CEO is a woman. We know the percentage of women in the senior management teams of the companies we support and the percentage of women on their boards. We measure the participation of women in our programs, and we continue to measure the number of female-founded high-potential startups. That kind of baseline data is critical for two reasons. Firstly, obviously, it allows us to measure progress in relation to achieving our objectives. But secondly, and most importantly, it is a way of ensuring that there is a gender lens applied to everything that we do across all of the departments in our organization. In an associated measure, we have now also started to seek this type of data from the venture capital and seed funds that we partner with. So both on the percentage of funds that they are investing in women-led companies, and also very importantly on the gender composition of their own internal structures, including their investment committees and senior teams. In terms of specific supports targeted at women entrepreneurs, we're continuing to issue pre-seed funding calls restricted to women applicants. This has been enormously successful for us in the past in terms of dramatically increasing the number of women seeking funding. And we see it as an important tool that we will continue to use, in particular in the post-COVID environment. We are also continuing to offer women-specific capability building programs. But over and above that, we are now applying a gender lens to all the management development and leadership programs that we offer. That is a two-pronged approach. So firstly, it's about ensuring that everything from how the program is delivered to the language and imaging that is used to promote the program is gender-proofed. And secondly, we have set specific targets, as I mentioned previously, to increase the proportion of women participants on our programs. I mean, one of the results of all of the activities that we've been undertaking, and again of putting in place the data requirements, is that across our organisation there's an increasing awareness of the need for a gender lens, and this is reflected in new initiatives being developed across the organisation. So, for example, our colleagues in the Eurozone region in our Amsterdam office piloted an innovative and highly interactive 3-hour workshop aimed at women looking to export for the first time into the Eurozone, obviously an online workshop. Our colleagues in the Enterprise Ireland offices in Australia recently launched a fully online international mentoring program for women, where women-led companies, Irish women-led companies looking to expand into markets in Australia and New Zealand and Southeast Asia have been matched with an experienced entrepreneur located in their target market. And we see this as being extended and delivered by other overseas offices during 2021. We have also escalated and enhanced the promotion of women in enterprise. And it's very noticeable if you look at any of our marketing collateral that women are equally represented. So I suppose in spite of the fact that the reality is otherwise, that is how we are now presenting it. While that might seem like a small thing, its importance shouldn't be underestimated. Research has proven that women are far more influenced by role models than men. The impact of changing the landscape so that women are equally represented in media and coverage and in marketing materials will relate much better to women and encourage more women to believe they too can become leaders in enterprise. A new and very exciting initiative we'll be launching later this year is our Gender Diversity and Leadership project. Again, this initiative is being designed and driven by a steering group comprised of individuals from across the organisation in Enterprise Ireland. And the key objective of this new project is to drive an increase in the proportion of women in senior leadership and decision-making roles in Irish companies. We're going to achieve this by doing 3 things. Firstly, raising the awareness among our client companies of the benefits to company performance of having at least 30% women on their senior leadership teams and boards. And we're going to do this through a targeted messaging and communications campaign. Important to mention in this context how important it is to have male champions in relation to this. So this isn't a women's issue, this is everybody's issue. And certainly that communication campaign needs to be supported and driven by men talking about the impact of gender diversity measures that they have taken on their company's performance. We'll also be promoting it by including, for the first time ever, questions in all our funding applications about the gender composition of the C-suite and boards of applicant companies. So this is based on nudge theory. So the idea is that by including this question in the forms that you fill out when you're applying for funding, it's raising awareness of this being an important issue and flagging for our companies that this is something Enterprise Ireland actually considers relevant when we are considering applications for funding. And in addition to that, of course, we will be including it in the one-to-one discussions that our development advisors have with the companies that they work with. Secondly, we are going to develop and provide an online self-assessment toolkit, which will enable companies to assess where they are now and provide guidance as to where they need to take action. And then finally, we are developing a suite of supports that will be available to our companies to assist them to implement those actions. We already have one support available to companies, which is the part-time key manager grant, which we launched last year. This grant provides funding towards hiring a key senior manager who will work on a part-time basis. And we believe that this will see an increase in the recruitment of women into key positions. I should say it's not restricted to women because, again, this is about equality and bringing balance So clearly, you know, you can recruit a man to the position of a part-time key manager, but we believe that it may be more attractive, may enable companies to attract senior women. Finally, I suppose in terms of the summarizing the kind of the actions that we're focusing on for this year, we will continue to work to influence policy and activities of other organizations that are operating in the enterprise ecosystem. I mean, as I previously mentioned, in Ireland, we've trebled the numbers of women starting high growth enterprise businesses. The visibility of women as leaders in enterprise has increased dramatically, and we can see that there is significant momentum building across the enterprise ecosystem towards taking proactive measures around improving gender balance. However, as I mentioned, we do recognise that the pandemic has the potential to impact our goal and our objectives in this plan. On the positive side, the pandemic has demonstrated the possibilities of flexible working arrangements across many industry sectors and companies that never considered this previously. There is a real opportunity to build on this experience and learning, but it must be done in a way that is equally inclusive of both women and men. And I suppose just, you know, one example of how COVID, of a positive impact of COVID, it's nice to come up with something positive. One of our rising stars, a female founded medtech company who actually recently had a 2.5 million euros Series A funding invested in the company, was telling me that if in pre-COVID times, she had recently had a baby, and in pre-COVID times, the demands of international travel would have meant she would have had to have stepped back as CEO and brought in an interim CEO. Because of COVID, she didn't have to do that. So I suppose that's a small thing, but it's not immaterial in terms of the potential for perhaps continuing with different ways of working that will facilitate the participation of women. I suppose what all of this underscores is the need to both understand and prioritize the gender dimension and to factor it into policy responses. We know that in this environment of increasingly complex problems that cross over between government departments and between the public and the private sector, horizontal policy making and implementation becomes very important. At its simplest, this approach must include applying that gender lens to the development of all elements of enterprise and entrepreneurship policy. It is critical to recognise that the equal participation of women is a cross-cutting issue, and that to yield the best and most sustainable outcomes, gender cannot be dealt with in isolation. We are seeing this approach being taken. A good example is the recent publication by the Irish government of the National Remote Work Strategy, where the recommendations and guidance recognise and address the potential for gendered outcomes. And in addition, this policy, while it's being led by the Department of Enterprise, it clearly sets out how it will inform and complement relevant work underway by other departments and organisations. The government is also strongly leading out on efforts to improve the representation of women on boards through the Balance for Better business initiative. Within Enterprise Ireland, my own organisation, as I previously highlighted, as part of our Women in Business strategy, we are applying that gender lens across all our services and supports, with a strong focus on making changes both to what we do and how we do it in a way that will have a lasting, sustainable impact. Increasing the numbers of women starting, growing and leading businesses, therefore, what I'm saying is it requires a multifaceted approach. Increasing female entrepreneurship can't be treated in isolation. It is inextricably linked to the achievement of gender balance across education and industry sectors, leadership and workforce participation. And this approach to policy and strategy needs to recognise and act on this to succeed in building that strong pipeline of future female entrepreneurs that I was talking about. I suppose just to end by saying that it is difficult to predict what the eventual impact of COVID-19 will be for women entrepreneurs. And we hope that our commitment as an organisation to keep the needs and preferences of women to the forefront in the design and delivery of entrepreneurship supports will ensure that where possible, the negative impacts of COVID-19 are minimised, and most importantly, that the opportunities to ensure an enduring focus on women entrepreneurs are fully maximised. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Sheelagh, for the very comprehensive presentation that you've just given us. We greatly appreciate, of course, the Irish perspective given us on issues which, of course, affect all countries in Europe and elsewhere. Thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to our second speaker now, Ms. Žydrūnė, and who's going to give us a Lithuanian perspective on gender equality issues.
Is my screen, have I stopped sharing? Sorry, I can't tell. It's just, I can't see it properly here.
We can still see your screen, so I think it's still sharing.
Okay, I don't know why that's happening.
Yeah, now it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say something short about Žydrūnė, who is head of sales at Elders, an engineering company in the security industry. She is the co-founder of the Women Go Tech initiative, the first mentorship program in Lithuania, which encourages women to choose a career in ICT and engineering. Žydrūnė, as we shall see, is also an experienced speaker on topics relating to women's empowerment and leadership, women in tech, community building, and business development. So, Žydrūnė, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Very nice to see, at least virtually, saying and listening to the previous speaker. I was relating to this international travel. Right now I'm saying hi to you from Fuerteventura and doing the business presentations and business in Vilnius. So the life of post-COVID has at least a tiny fraction of the positive outcomes as well. So today I'm going to share my experiences with and the views of from the Women Go Tech perspective. As correctly noticed, that this is an initiative that we co-founded five years ago here in Lithuania to look into tech and women in tech in particular. And do something to change that situation. Because right now, taking into the context, right now, I think it was a big year for Lithuania to jump into the global gender gap index by 25 positions. So we first of the time, we made it into the top 10. However, that goes into the holistic index, and that's issued by the World Economic Forum. And when it comes to specific specialties, when it comes to specific industries, the gap is still very big. When we look into the future jobs, which is also one of the several reports that the World Economic Forum is working on. The critical areas are one of the most perspective jobs, such as cloud computing, engineering, data, AI, which are tech related, and their women representation is limited, and this is very similar across all the EU countries. When we look into the statistics, so. And I can share that in Lithuania, we're, I would say, doing not so bad. 24% of women would be working in the ICT industry, in comparison to 17.7% of women in the European context, EU27, since the data is from 2019. So we'd say, why we should look into that category. That was the question for us, the co-founders of the program. Maybe it's not so bad. Maybe the situation is changing soon. It's increasing. The representation is increasing according to the increasing demand of the ICT specialists. However, that's not happening over the course of the years, because in the 2020 already, that was the analysis done by the Infobalt, the Association of the ICT Companies, and Invest Lithuania, if I'm not mistaken, there was a shortage of 13,000 ICT specialists only in Lithuania. So the 25% in Lithuania, and even lower percentage in the EU average, is a critical problem in order to work for the gender parity in the industry and beyond. What we see in EU over the last nearly decade, in the last 8 years from 2011 to 2019, the demand of the ICT specialists grew by 40%. And we are back to the context of the COVID, which revealed that the segmentation and the structure of various sectors really touched women. I have not analyzed the global and European data, but in Lithuania last year in April, there were twice as more women who lost the job than in comparison to men. So this crisis particularly touched, or I say crisis because that definitely touched number of sectors, number of groups, has touched women a lot. And with Women Go Tech, we say that the name already says quite a lot, but with Women Go Tech, we were in the topic before COVID and before, just because of this 25%. And I would say always the initiatives start from the personal experiences. As commented by about my career, I am working in the engineering industry and the ICT industries for already a decade. And there was a period of my life, I was the only woman in the Baltic markets in the ICT industry, working with a mobile operator, radio network planners. Never seen anybody else in the room that would be of a different gender for 5 years. So that personal experiences also helped me raise the question whether it's normal. That's one thing. Second is what has to change in order for me and for everybody else to see more examples in engineering, in ICT, of women in the room, not particularly in the leadership positions. So in order to change that situation and understanding that the industry is lacking specialists, we founded NGO, and first of all, it was only a pilot, just an idea, of Women Go Tech, the first mentorship program in Lithuania for women to seek career in tech, because what we wanted, we all come from business. We all wanted success stories and the result. There is a lot of inspiration. There is a lot of discussion about it. But when it comes to actual success cases of those women working in technology industry, then we have a few. We have only a few in the leadership positions, and it leads also to the innovation and entrepreneurship afterwards. If we don't understand technology, if we don't work in technology, if we don't know the rules of how it's run, how can we reinvent? How can we establish innovative companies if we are not engaged into the sector? So we founded the initiative that focuses, first of all, on the industry experts who are willing to mentor women, willing to transition into the tech industry. That was the core of the program from the very, very beginning. And along the years, we built it We built it in a way with additional courses, with additional visits to companies, tech events, and various things to complement the mentorship program so that the knowledge is provided as well. It's not the university, it's not the education courses, it's facilitated learning process for from 6 to 9 months for women who are willing to get into tech sector. And I say that over these years, Women Go Tech, since 2017, when we started with the first season, has generated 305 success cases. So 305 in Lithuania are right now working in tech industry thanks to Women Go Tech. And when I speak to international audiences, to me even as well, I come from sales, you know, all the numbers are small numbers there. So the 300 women is not a big number. It's barely even a mid-sized company, right? If we take it into this perspective. But I would have a question that, you know, that's the size of the community that we are touching regardless of the success stories. So Women Go Tech in those 5 years not only generated the 300 plus success stories, but most importantly has built a community as an ecosystem combined by representatives from the various tech companies, company decision makers who are supporting the program, also various experts and women with an aspiration to get into tech, which is right now running in 2 markets, in Lithuania and Latvia, with the Women Go Tech program per se, and unites 12,000 people. It is also, over the course, has been noticed by the google.org. I will talk about it a bit later. We have done a consultancy together with the UI to European Commission on how to run similar programs that do change the ecosystem for Women Go Tech, women inclusion into technology sector. Also, we are working with the Nordic Council of Ministers, sharing our practices in the Nordic and Baltic region. And we have been supported by the patron President Daly from the year number 1. So we say that 300 success stories is, you know, maybe something that not so much to brag about it. When we compare how many of them participated in the seasons 1 to season 5, it's 421. Now I have the question to you, the ones who have the mics on. What do you think is the number of women ICT students over the same period in Lithuania? Any guesses? Just shoot
the same.
Okay, we have one option. Any other ideas? Just type the number or something in the chat if you think. Okay, no one is guessing, or I don't see the chat numbers. But you know, when we compared, this is the number of female students in ICT studies in Lithuania over the course of 2017 to 2020 in total. What means that, you know, and this is when we put into comparison, this starts to make sense, because typically the drop rate after studies in ICT students is also high. We don't have the statistics about it, but the entire educational system has generated nearly 800 women who have university or vocational study experience in the ICT studies, and I'd assume 70 to 80% of them would be working according to the specialties. However, the grassroots initiative, just a tiny program of Women Go Tech, has generated 300 success stories by now, which is a 40% of what the entire educational system can do in Lithuania. And that's when we realized that alternative programs, alternative result-focused programs is one of the ways to stimulate the topic awareness in the public eye, and also generate success cases and real life cases that might have a snowball effect afterwards. But working with Women Go Tech, we always say that it's a project, it's an initiative, but on the other hand, what we did is we also reviewed what are the reasons, what are the challenges that women face, and is it a pipeline problem that we don't have women in technology sector, or is it a bit more? So with Women Go Tech, we have several learnings, I would say, from running this initiative over the years. That and the first lesson that we took is that majority of the people who, when I co-founded this program, especially at the 2017, several my colleagues objected the program by saying that's not even an issue, because there is no barrier to get into technology studies, there is no barrier to apply for the job, there is no constraint that would be official for women to get into something they'd want. So they were objecting even this initiative, that it's not it's focusing on a too narrow problem, and we shouldn't be doing or wasting resources. There's much more to do from the NGO perspective in the market. So I've got these comments from my allies who would be working in the various NGOs and pretty smart men, that the problem doesn't exist. And we noticed with the first season that there is a support that has to be offered. There is an advice and that has to be offered to the market, and it's very openly accepted. What we noticed is that there are no systems. There's in the school you cannot do, or you don't typically select tech or STEM courses because it's not common. There are no systems and education on how teachers might be engaging diverse groups into various modules. And for sure, there are huge problem of stereotypes in families that carry throughout generations. And therefore, we have very limited number of students in the university. But when we look into, even in the COVID context, the careers are transitioning towards multiple roles. It's not always the vertical. It's now a lot about horizontal. There are lots of specialties and jobs that you can do throughout the course of your career that were non-existing 10, 20 years ago. And the willingness to reshape the career, requalify is there in the market. However, there are no structures to support that willingness and facilitate the learning. So we say that we all know the term of glass ceiling, but with Women Go Tech, we noticed the sticky floor aspect, that this low self-esteem and low self-trust, that the knowledge could be taken and that the first steps could be made to get into the technology sector. And I want to illustrate that with the numbers. We thought that, in Lithuania, we're, 1/4 of women already work in ICT sector, so the problem might be not so big. And we say that industry is somehow engaged into requalifying experts. So would Women Go Tech as initiative be accepted in the market? And would there be a demand of women for additional support to get into the tech specialties? So in season 1, we received, 250 applicants for 30 spots. That showed us that there is some interest. In the season 5, in 2 markets, in Lithuania and Latvia, there was over over 1,600 applicants to such programs, and we accepted roughly, I'd say 500 participants per 2 markets already to help them get into technology sector. And so right now we are running this. This is the photo from one of the opening seasons, which when we had the chance to welcome all the community in one room. And we right now run 2 markets. We have 500 mentees. We have lots of experts who are tech specialists who have fantastic knowledge, good experience, and they are eager to share this knowledge. And we have 10 different topics where women are engaged in with the clear aspiration to transition into the sector, to start working in as internship, as first job, as the specialist job in those topics, in UX, UI, front end, back end. Data analytics is booming over the last years. We also include engineering, not only ICT specialties, because that's more and more blending with the ICT sector and offering more and more opportunities for everybody, not only women. And as I always say, there is a willingness. There is only no mechanism for women to get into the desirable career track. And why is that so? Because even these tracks, what I share with you, this is what we talk, that this is what's an opportunity in technology sector. But when we started in 2017, the understanding that to work in tech, that means programming. That's it. If I don't want to program, I don't have a chance to be in that included in the industry, because I don't know what else I could be doing. And we, with Women Go Tech, we started also talking about different opportunities in technology sector and trying to reveal the potential that there could be multiple types of personalities that could go into the industry and they can find the job. They can be project managers in the IT projects, but they can also be back-end programmers. And that's possible on the totally different career tracks. And what we wanted to do is we also wanted to talk about it to a much wider audience. And COVID context, with the number of women who lost their jobs and potentially have to requalify, was the perfect opportunity for us to go onto a larger scale. And Women Go Tech was very happy to partner and receive a grant from Google.org. This is a philanthropic Google organization working with various NGOs and NGO initiatives. And what we did, together with Latvian partners, we created a program for unlimited number of women who are, from various geographical regions to start learning on what are the opportunities in the tech sector, potentially in the future willing to requalify and work on their particular career path. We set a target to ourselves as if we get 2,000 online participants, we are happy. What we were not prepared for, that we got 11,000. We got 11,000 advertising it for 3 weeks in Lithuania and Latvia, of an age group that you can see that is very diverse, from 26 to 35. This is the largest group, but also from 46 to 55, from 36 to 45. These are adult women willing to requalify. And we, with Women Go Tech experience, with mentorship program experience, we have such cases, many of those cases where at the age of 40, 50, women requalify and go into the testing specialties, they go into the programming specialties. And these are the real cases, that those 300 success stories that I was talking about, right? So the demand is huge by the market. For ICT specialists, the supply is also big. What our pilot projects has showed, But however, the numbers are still not changing. And I think there are more, what we noticed with Women Go Tech, there are more areas of focus where we should all pay attention to. And the second learning, what we always carry is, we say that Women Go Tech talks about women at the title, but when it comes to the program, when it comes to reality, this is where the word ends, and this is where the gender ends, because for us it's important that we work for the equality, and industry is prepared to welcome diverse teams. It's not only about gender, it's also about the age, about experience, about the race, and various areas. But I think with Women Go Tech, we stand strong for men to be engaged. Men are our mentors. Men are experts, men are decision makers who decide to support such initiative as an important initiative for the company. Here's the co-founder of Women Go Tech delivering the speech to several hundred women. And it is a funny story, because we are two co-founders, and I commented to you about me standing in front of radio engineers, always the only woman in the room, and typically very young, so with all the stereotypes of that too. And I remember Paulus, he was the manager of Infobalt, and he was preparing to deliver the welcome speech to all these women, and he was really scared to go to speak in front of nearly 200 women sitting in the room. And we were having a chit chat, and I was saying, why? What is different? And he told that, I never spoke to such an audience before, and it is very scary, because you don't feel part of it. And then we had a chat that, this is how I feel in my life, in my professional life. I always am in your role, and this is what I experience. That chat really helped us both to synchronize towards the mission and willingness to work for more. And I think we achieved a very good engagement by men, really talking and about the gender equality in tech, and hiring women for their teams. That was also important part for us, to work with these mentors who become part of Women Go Tech program, who work on the program, and so that we change the behavior, not only the mindset as well. And definitely the community, you can see, you saw the numbers, and we see that not only by working on the mentorship programs, we can reach the scale, we can reach the change in perception, we can talk about various cases with the public, and we can get the knowledge by the community and simulate various pilot initiatives within the community to help women not only to learn what tech requires, but also to establish ventures, establish companies. And this is what was happening at under Women Go Tech umbrella too. And we talked about the size of the community, but I think it's just the beginning. It's just the pilot, as we always say, the pilot for 5 years. But what I want to also mention is that the importance, we always in the policy making perspective, in the rooms for where the decisions are made, we always talk about the top level, about the statistical factors, and when we started with Women Go Tech, when we looked into the Lithuanian context, the top managers, the CEOs of tech companies were two that we knew. There was the Barclays CEO at that time, with a woman, and the Nasdaq CEO. That's it. We didn't know more. And for us, what was important is to create an example that not the CEO stories, but the ordinary tech stories could be real and could be tangible and achieved within the course of 6 to 9 months. To demonstrate that those real examples exist, they can be created, the requalification is real, and the opportunity within tech is also real. So we wanted these women who became success stories to speak up, to start to be, they are no names, but they start to be represented in media, they tell their stories, they talk to other women, and that's how we multiply the result, and that's how we get into the numbers. So these are the real examples with the names and surnames, with the different age groups, totally different backgrounds. As we say, with this kind of method, with mentorship, with community engagement, we have managed to, and a bit of training, we have managed to achieve 70% success rate of all women engaged into the program to get into tech. And to start, we measure either the first job or the internship or the advancement in their career if they are shifting to the roles, for example, from testing to programming, right? And these real examples became, as I say, a tipping point for other programs to appear and for various grassroots initiatives to appear to work on the more specific topics such as women in tech entrepreneurship, women founders clubs, women Java programmers clubs, and all of the possible things. And for that to achieve, I always say multi-stakeholder environment is the key. With Women Go Tech, we told at the very beginning that if the industry feels the lack and the shortage, industry will support it, and industry has to be engaged in it. So we did not ask for any governmental money. We went to the companies and then we pitched what is important. And these are the partners for the season 5. But these are the companies that do believe that it's their responsibility to bring the gender equality in technology industry, and they are actively engaged. It's not the financial support, it's an active engagement by providing experts, providing knowledge bases, providing mentors, providing events to community to reveal what's the potential of the tech industry, and in this way change the numbers. What we did with Women Go Tech, we work a lot, I'd say, on the various angles and a bit on the policy making as well. And what we did, and I speak more on the learnings and understandings, but what we did and how we set up this program, there is our guidebook that is launched in late. It has been published in March 2021. Prepared in the end of last year, together with the European Commission, based on the Women Go Tech example, on setting up the mentorship programs as a successful way to change the gender representation ICT industry based on Women Go Tech example. This guide is focused on the EU Eastern Partner countries, but majority of the information is also about what it is to create such programs, what it is to create the ecosystem that helps to change the data and to change data representation. So at the end, if the sector and in many markets, if the sector is able to get the talent into the sector, then definitely the talent will have lots of opportunities and chances, and that adds up to the competitiveness of markets in the global arena, especially in the COVID context. So the slides are shared. You will be able to download and read it if that's of your interest. But we provided very practical guidance with more examples that I couldn't be sharing today because of the time limitations. But this is something to look into and to analyze the local realities, the global context, and look for effective tools to actually change these numbers. We have been working on the Nordic markets. We have been doing pitching of those, success cases to school children. we sent Women Go Tech alumni to schools to talk about their careers, to change the perspective of how women are treated, and to talk to multi-gender audiences, because it's not only about women on choosing ICT studies. And we managed to hopefully we will manage to change the numbers to better representation in studies too. So for us, always the belief is that when there is a person willing to help, when there is a mentor and the expert willing to help to another human being, then the programs and initiatives scale and then they achieve a result. That's why the mentorship for us was selected. And I still believe that this is one of the successful tools to change the representation of women in ICT and engineering sectors. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much for invitation, and I hope that there was a bit of something to take, or at least some of the questions to think about.
Well, thank you very much, Žydrūnė, for your presentation, your spirited presentation on the work of the Women Go Tech Initiative. We really enjoyed your presentation. And we don't have so much time, so I want, without further ado, to hand over to Georgeta, who's going to moderate our discussion on gender equality. The floor is yours, Georgeta, please.
Okay, thank you for the possibility, Peter. I'm happy to have a possibility to be here with you all, and it was really interesting to hear about the things going on both in Ireland and in Lithuania. We have heard two different examples, I'd say, because in Ireland it was very broad, program. It was helping a lot to lots of businesses. And in Lithuania, it's more specific, but it's also very focused and oriented because it's the future. So it was very interesting to see it, and especially that in those rankings where Žydrūnė showed that Ireland and Lithuania are pretty close, next to each other. So it's very nice to have this information. And I think that to start our discussion, I'd like to invite our two other participants. It's Georgeta and Triin. Just to say a little bit from their country perspective regarding what you have heard. What can you say about your country? Like, do you have something like that in your country, or maybe there are some different approaches in here? And how do you think it's in your? So Georgeta, maybe you can start.
Okay. Yes, sure. Thank you. Well, first of all, I would like to congratulate Žydrūnė. I'm not sure I spell it correctly. I pronounce it correctly. Very nice initiative, and I think it's very courageous to do something like this to promote women in tech. I can say that in Romania, I don't think we have such an initiative, but we have Professional Women's Network, and we have several associations that promote gender balance. In Professional Women's Network, we want to promote gender balance leadership and advance women in leadership positions. However, I need to say that in the country, women are quite, I think, at a global level, if we compare with other countries, we are not very badly representative in management positions. However, in board, in non-executive boards, we are less well represented. And one of the things that I find interesting in our country is that many times I think many times women are more, if I may say, discriminatory towards women. So I think there is a lot to be done there as well, in educating women to be more, to have a better self-esteem, as it was said in the presentation before, but also in being more inclusive and more, show empathy for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks a lot, Georgeta, for your insights.
Yeah, and I, one thing that I noticed is that many times women negotiate less. They believe that they said something, and you should take it at the face value. However, men negotiate much more, and I read somewhere that on average, men negotiate 8 times more than a woman. So when we talk about salaries, that is an important thing, and I think there is much to be done in terms of educating women in how to stand for themselves. And in Professional Women's Network, we have 3 pillars. One is about mentoring. The other one is about entrepreneurship, women entrepreneurs. And the other one is women on boards. And, we have also an overarching idea that covers all these 3 pillars, which is engaging men. Because we don't want to do it alone. We want to do it. We want to be inclusive and to have them support us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, sounds great, because I hear that we are still all of you, like I'm mentioning, similar things, yeah, about mentoring, about boards, about entrepreneurship, because this is the key things, yes?
Yes,
how to
indeed.
make it through.
Yeah, and I want to invite Žydrūnė maybe to partnership with Professional Women's Network, because it's a global organization, and you can find synergies with your own initiative in terms of finding mentors, for instance.
Yeah, sounds great. I see thumbs for Žydrūnė, so I guess she's definitely interested. So thanks a lot, Georgeta. Triin, could you now share your experiences and your thoughts on this one?
Yes, first of all, I'm really grateful for invitation to be here and to hear this discussion and those presentations from those 2 different angles, just as you mentioned. So when I quickly think back to Estonian situation, then I think the gender hasn't been so well mainstreamed through Enterprise Estonia. So we have, of course, the government organization there, but I don't think they have yet made gender equality or any gender lens as one of their key things. So I see it in other bits of government support grant schemes, but not there. So maybe there is more that can be done there, or could be brought to be more visible. In terms of ICT initiatives, of course, I was looking at envy that Latvian and Lithuanian organizations have partnered together. But in Estonia, we do have those initiatives. They are perhaps less bringing together different organizations, but there is cooperation. I think it's mostly targeting young people. So this is something that is more common. On the other hand, we have very many. I mean, our percentage of adult students in higher education in general and vocational education too is really high compared to many other countries. So I think there is a good possibility for the reshaping the careers. But there is something that I also noticed that I really would like to also highlight that the interviews that we've carried out, I'm a sociologist from Tallinn University, and we've run the projects on gender equality aspects on organizational level. So we see sometimes that just exactly what Žydrūnė was mentioning, that we can widen the the idea of what does it mean to work in the sector. So we sometimes then also see that this is a good reasoning for actually maintaining the gender pay gap in the sector, because of course these are now those women's jobs in the sector. So we can again go and pay them less, and this is something that is just a danger that we just have to have in mind, that we don't treat then those new populations in a sector or even among entrepreneurs as someone who are the latecomers, and now we have to support them, but of course they are always behind us. So we as the decision makers, as you also mentioned, we the men as the decision makers, but sometimes we the women as the decision makers who didn't need that support, then we will always be sort of better, and we can always decide that their pay gaps, I mean their pay levels will be lower. So this is a danger that I think we see in so many cases. So of course it's classic that to change the field you have to first enter the field and show that you follow all the rules and you can do it. So there is this discrepancy about, okay, where does the change then come if we keep becoming the follow-uppers? So this is just a thought that I see, that there's a danger to pertaining this.
Mm-hmm. Great, yeah, very great to hear from you, because usually what we think that up north most of the countries are really better in terms of gender equality, yeah, because but as we see in statistics, it's not exactly the same. So it's yeah, and same, like even from my own perspective, I also thought that, yeah, maybe it's not so many barriers in Lithuania like for women to do that, but when you go deeper into the details you understand that there definitely is. And I think that, yes, even the family model, like our like culture like history, we still women are tending more to stay to take care of the children, and usually in the family model the men are hoping that women can take care of the children, and like then we will do the business. And when you need to stay with children to take care of them, of course, it's much more difficult. And as Žydrūnė said right now, yeah, for example, even in COVID times, it can work, yeah, it can work better. And Sheelagh mentioned the same. So I think that what we can also discuss, what we can do to make it better, like in our companies as leadership. Because here in EBN, like a lot of like CEOs, I think, and owners and shareholders are participating, who can make the change, who can step in with their own example and try to lead the way and try to make the change in the organization. So maybe all of you, like, I don't know, one by one, maybe starting from Sheelagh, you could share some of your insights and ideas how we can do that, and what each of us can do to make the change, because everything starts from ourselves. So.
Well, thank you very much, Žydrūnė, and it was very, very interesting to hear the presentation by Žydrūnė and the comments from Georgina and Triin. And I'm sorry if I pronounced your names all wrong, but the women in tech, the Go Tech women was very, very interesting. So a lot of ideas there, and very, very similar challenges in Ireland to what you described in Lithuania and Latvia in terms of the numbers of women in university that are studying ICT or engineering, and the fallout then even after they graduate, not actually going into the jobs in those sectors, which is another strange factor. But anyway, so just to come back to your question, Rimgodas, just I suppose, what can leaders of companies, this is exactly what we are trying to drive with one of the objectives within our Women in Business strategy. And as I said, I think the first thing is we need to understand what is the best way to message this to the male CEOs, which are the predominant, as you know, from the stats that I presented, you know, in terms of CEOs of companies, the vast majority are male. How do we convince them that this is something that is good for them to do? This cannot be about being nice to women. That isn't what it's about. This is about understanding that there is a definitive bottom line impact of ensuring that you have diversity of thought and diversity of leadership in senior roles. and ensuring that you don't. And so for us, that is something, as I said in my presentation, we are going to look to have male champions who will speak about this. So CEOs of companies who are willing to talk about what they did in relation to improving gender balance in their boards and on their senior executive teams, and how they believe that has impacted. I mean, the other clear message for CEOs of companies is that you're talking about there is a war for skills and talent. We know that. COVID may have had some impact in certain sectors, obviously huge impact. But in general, we know we are going to still be facing, CEOs of companies are still going to be facing a war for the best skills and talent. If you're not attracting 50% of the population because your entire board and senior management team is comprised of men, and you know your company doesn't position itself to attract women, you're missing out on skills and talent. So there's two very clear messages there that we need to promote. But as I said, I think it's important that it's men promoting that message and standing up, because potentially other men will listen to them more so. And as I said, but the key thing is that this is not about being nice to women. This is good for business. And that's how we need to bring. And then in terms of the actions that they can take, well, as I said, we are developing at the moment a toolkit which will enable companies to assess where they are across a number of different elements of how they operate. So that could be everything from how are they going about attracting talent, so recruitment, how do they develop internal talent that they have. And I mean, the very first step, which I actually mentioned when I was talking about, you know, the importance of it, is just even collecting the data. I mean, do you know within your company how many women are at different levels and functions within your company? Do you know how many, even if you say, well, look, I've got at least 3 managers in my senior management team that are women. Yes, what role are they playing? Are they actually influencing strategy, or are they in what would be considered a very functional role where there isn't as much influence and behind it? So, you know, it's a nuanced approach. I could talk about this for a long time, so I'll stop now. But yes, there's a starting point that is actually even understanding where you are right now.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, it's very important, as you say, first to understand where you are, what you have, and when to start from where and to take the right decisions. So really good advice. So Žydrūnė, maybe you can share your thoughts.
I could agree with what Sheelagh was mentioning. I couldn't agree more. You know, on the various topics we can go more and more deeper and deeper. What I say is, to me, is always on the two most important, no, maybe 3 most important angles. First is, it's not only about the C positions. I always say make the hires, the first hires. It runs also in my family. My sister, just because I started working in tech, she was forced by me to join technical university because I was lacking knowledge. So I wanted at least my sister would have an understanding of what the construction material looks like, right? She was the first woman to be hired as the designer in the construction company. They have never done it before, with all the issues afterwards, because the company doesn't have the policy understanding and so on. But after her, and her main goal was that they would hire more. So her strive and willingness was to continue. And they started hiring women because they noticed, oh, we were missing out, right? So we were missing out of this certain skill set. For sure, it's a pipeline issue. You cannot get so many candidates, but still, there was a good example. And I always say, make those first hires. And I was very happy when some of the mentors, because we have 50-50 roughly, a division of mentors who are men. They are in the industry, you know, they are the champions, ambassadors. There's no even question about the discrimination or something like that. Some of mentors came after first season or second season to me to talk, and they say, you know, I hired the first woman for my team, and there were several of them. And then they were enjoying it. And then they told, oh, so the situation in the market is changing, the pipeline is changing. And then I say, or there's a vice versa, you started seeing? Because what happened is the effect that mentors started to see that their mentees, which they would fight for, they would kill somebody for their mentee to get into tech because they are really committed to it. When they started that these people are very motivated, they listened to other candidates too. The same happened in our company as well, in various functional, non-functional positions. So I always say, make those first hires. They will not be 100% right, as always happens, because many things are happening on the way. But at least then you have an informative decision on what the skill set is. And the second thing I say is assign P&L responsibilities in order for P&L strategy responsibilities. And I was challenged in one of the conversations by one investor who was asking me as well, so how many women in your team have P&L responsibilities? Because you cannot change the situation in the C-suite if you don't assign tasks early on, because we all got to train somehow, and it's more likely that only those who had these responsibilities would be selected, or we would go into a different angle that we select for the quota, which not always is the good outcome. And the last one, which I already shared in the Women Go Tech, is I love both genders, if we can even say both. I love men championing for equality when it goes to internal and external representation. Internal, I mean company. I have more and more women candidates who in the interview have enough courage to ask, so what is the situation within the company? And even if we are sitting together with the CEO, I give this answer to him. So for me, it always is, it starts from ambassadorship of the topic when the engagement starts. And I think which I support all of the women initiatives which are for women, by women, but I always say that this does not replicate the real life, and that's what I always say, that within the companies, let them speak, let them hire, let them decide, and let them see the outcome, because it just goes by the example. If you have the skill set that's represented, if you have good employees, if you see the talent, if you see how your product is being influenced by different mind and different experience, what questions are raised, then there's no chance anybody would be so blind not to make business decision to continue this way.
Thanks a lot, Žydrūnė. Also, additional insights regarding to Sheelagh's what it was said, but yes, same here. Yeah, completely agree with you. So, Georgeta.
Yes. Well, I was thinking that one thing that, at least in our country, we could do more is to influence the government to have a strategy to I want to say to impose quotas for women in management in different companies. And I know it sounds bad to say impose quotas. However, in order to change something, you need to take more drastic measures at a certain point, and then people will start to adjust and to rethink the way they do business, because I think there are countries that already did this, and I am talking about France, for instance. But I think in Romania we are not in the top. We are not an example from this point of view. So this is one thing that we are trying to do, and we have a project in PWN regarding advocacy. And the other one is the other initiative is to continue to support women with mentoring, so that they trust themselves more. I work with a lot of women in top management positions, and I'm surprised to see sometimes that a woman who is a CEO does not negotiate more for herself. And she expects her global CEO to understand from what she wants from the first go. So I think women need more encouragement and more support in this self-esteem.
Okay. Yeah, agree.
And I think it's also a matter of cultural differences. I think, as you mentioned before, traditionally we were raised in a certain way, and we need to encourage women to think differently and to dare. I think we do think differently many times, but we don't dare enough. Yeah,
I agree. Like I think it's the same in all the countries. It doesn't matter like where you are. Just in one country, it's more like more difficult to do that and to change. It's more like in your roots, and in others maybe people are still already a little bit wider, has a little bit wider insights. But anyway, a long way to go for everybody. So thanks a lot, Georgeta. Triin.
It's been really good to hear all those suggestions, and if any one of us is to take one of them with them, then that's probably already good enough. I was thinking of two things. So one is what you said, Žydrūnė, also when you were beginning your project, then even the people who you worked with were not really believing there is a problem. So just making the problem visible, and maybe, we can be also kind to women, and that's also a good thing, but that it is not only about that. So obviously we have to be kind to women too, but that's really, as Sheelagh said, it's that's probably not enough, but that's also important. So then to get everyone to see where the problem really is. And studies show when we interview also employers or even employees in the organization, they tend to believe there is no gender wage gap, even though they know that Estonia as a society is ahead of other European countries with the national level gender wage gap. But they don't believe there's one in my company or in my organization in whatever sector. But of course, we never studied if we have some. So there is this total lack of awareness, because this goes sort of under the radar. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to think about it. And then we also then neglect to notice all the points during the hire, like even promoting the jobs, where we can go wrong in terms of diverse practices. So if we don't see a problem at all, so that means we have to start from showing the problem. And obviously, sometimes it's enough to acknowledge that we can't really change the mindset. We can only change the behavior. So sometimes some rules in place will really be helpful. And as Sheelagh said, there is this requirement to encourage that certain amount of people of both genders are in managerial boards. So this kinds of encouragements as aims to go for, we can also set at the company level. So if my managers would have one of their performance indicators, something related to gender, then surely they will be achieving it, even if they don't believe in it. So then there are different ways to approach it. Sometimes it's convincing, sometimes it's actually making it happen first, and then see if the first hire convinces the others. There's definitely a lot to be done in all countries, as you just said, but in some countries we need more efforts to start even with.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I see that we are running off time, so I guess that probably we should finalize and summarize our panel discussion. But today I also want to use the opportunity to thank you all for participating here and to be able to raise these questions, to raise the awareness, I think, And also from my point of view, it's the most important for everybody to understand that it's not simple a question of a gender equality just because it has to be done. No, it's more for that we need to use the variety, as you mentioned, that to have women in the personnel, yeah, and in your human resources. It definitely brings another attitude, another angle, and it helps to have different approaches and to reach the better results for everybody. So I think that we need to somehow bring this message that to have more women in your company and to have more various like human resources, it will be beneficial for everybody, like for the shareholders and for all the employees. So I'm happy to hear this. I will bring back this message to our company. In our company, it's completely different, the opposite. It's much more women than men. But anyway, I'd say it's really good topic today, and I'm very happy to be part of it. So, Peter, I'm bringing the word back to you.
No, I just thank you very much for moderating the discussion. I just want to say that at the embassy here, we are delighted that during the short Irish chair of the European Business Network, that we were able to have a discussion on such an important subject as gender equality in the workplace. I'm especially delighted that as part of that discussion, we had a presentation by Sheelagh on the great efforts which are being made by Ireland's national authority, Enterprise Ireland, on gender equality. And the strategy that you outlined, Sheelagh, is really most impressive. Thanks Sheelagh for your presentation. Thanks also to Žydrūnė for your presentation and the great contributions which were made by Georgeta from Romania and Triin from Tallinn in Estonia. I think we had a very fascinating discussion, and I hope we bring the messages that we've learned back to our own companies and organizations. So thank you all very much for your participation, and have a good day after the daily start.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a fantastic
Thank you so
day.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.